Next story is a not much happier one, but a little bit more sciencey. Terry.
Yeah, it just occurred to me there that basically this is a new pandemic, and it's not just around the whole Earth or on the surface of the whole Earth, it's around it in space as well. Yes, slightly better news, good news and bad. The bad news first is poor old Hubble Space Telescope. It's now 31 years old. In July, it had a sort of a relatively major shutdown because of problems that I'm not going to go into now. We talked about them at the time. It's now suffered another little mishap. It had a fault with the synchronization of all its internal communications. You don't need to go into that in too much detail, but basically there's a whole lot of internal communication between the pointing, the guidance, the imaging, the telemetry, and all the rest of it. And that all needs to be synchronized for the thing to work properly. So that failed. All 5 of the main instruments went into a safe mode, which is what they're designed to do when there's anything like this happens. And of course, the good guys and gals at NASA started looking at the problem and interrogating the system and doing simulations and so on to see what it was. So they think really it is just the problem of a lack of synchronization of the internal comms. They are working on that, and the good news is that they have now got one of the main instruments back again, the advanced camera for surveys, so it's working. And they're still working on bringing the other main instruments back online. And this isn't just a telescope with one instrument on the back. As well as that, it's got the Cosmic Origin Spectrograph, the Wide Field Camera 3, the Space Telescope Imaging System, near-infrared camera, and a multi-object spectrometer. And they all take their turns basically in doing observations and recording data, and then that's sent back to Earth. So it's not just literally one instrument that takes pretty pictures that we see in the media every so often. Huge amount of really good science is being done there. They're being very careful, making sure that whatever they do doesn't make anything worse. But they are hoping to get all of those other instruments back operating again. And it is amazing that they do that remotely with a telescope that was launched 31 years ago and was designed about 40 years ago, and some of the software and hardware in it is that age. And yet, you know, they're coaxing it back into operation again. If I had a computer here on my desk that was that age, I wouldn't be expecting to get it to operate at all. So good luck to the ones at NASA that are working on this. They've fixed it before. I'm hoping they'll fix it again. And until James Webb goes up, which we'll probably talk about next time, this is still our main telescope in space for the sort of astronomy that most people are interested in. There's other stuff in gamma rays and all the rest of it that very useful to professional astronomers, but for the likes of you and me that like looking at nice pictures of whatever's out there in the universe, Hubble is still the one. So let's hope they get it going again.
It's interesting you say that. You think about computers in the old days, and you know the era of the Commodore 64, for example, which some of our listeners may remember if they're of a certain age, and the VIC-20 and the Sinclair, Timex Sinclair ZX80s and 81s, etc. These things all booted from ROMs, so the kind of boot times were significantly faster in many respects, and they were in also many respects far more robust because there weren't as many moving parts in those days. And if you think about it, the Hubble technology is decades old. You know, the ACS Advanced Camera for Surveys and WIFPIC, etc., all of the other cameras on board. These are not modern CCDs as we know them. You know, the average amateur's got more capability in a digital SLR in terms of number of megapixels, etc., than is on the Hubble. But it is this remarkable instrument, and the scientific output is the most prolific scientific instrument pretty much in human history. So it's one to definitely keep alive for as long as possible. And I've no doubt when it eventually does fail, either that reaction wheels, gyros, reaction wheels are the things that obviously stabilize the spacecraft in orbit, and the gyroscopes enable it to do the pointing, and they've managed to do loads of kludges over the years in terms of getting less gyros to still keep it pointing in the right direction. It is amazing what the SDSCI, the Space Telescope Science Institute, have managed to do in keeping this working. But yeah, James Webb is a very different beast, and it's also interesting. We were talking just before we came on air about research papers going back into the early 80s from the IRAS satellite, the infrared astronomical satellite that was an orbiting satellite before the Hubble. And some of the research that's still going on where they think they potentially may have found an extra planet in our solar system from IRAS data going back decades, because, you know, as data reduction methods and processing methods improve and the ability to, you know, take old image data and reprocess it improves, we're still getting new science out of this stuff. So Hubble's legacy will go on for decades. No doubt there'll be research papers coming out of what the Hubble's generated for a long time to come. But we do need to keep it up there. And again, you know, if you've got tons of debris flying around, that's not helpful either. You know, Hubble has had some strikes. There was an incident with one of the solar panels when it was brought down, and they showed that it had been hit by something.